thanks for that really impossible job, Robin, of trying to summarize a really kind of vivid afternoon for me, morning for some of you, and evening for some of you as well. But yeah, a really fascinating day. That was kicked off with Sian giving an outline of the meeting. Basically, over the next 4 days, we'll be talking about trust, about collaboration, about listening and supporting. Then we had a layering of the kind of contributory foundations of decaying public value in vaccines by Stuart Bloom. He talked about 3 of these foundations. The first one, vaccines being oversold as a kind of holy grail or a panacea for all kind of ill health. And how that can lead to excessive trust and disappointment eventually. And then the second pillar, kind of shift in the way in which vaccines are kind of provided from national bodies towards kind of global corporations, and how that shift from local discourses to kind of global discourses kind of result in a public feeling that they get vaccines which are perhaps not as essential to them. And the third one, changes in political systems and perhaps a perception and real, again, dissatisfaction in governments, kind of manifesting itself in kind of projecting itself as a kind of a means of kind of expressing dissatisfaction with the powers that be. And then we had Heidi Larson, who kind of that led to a very rich discussion from Heidi about kind of give us a kind of historical shift in the way the public feel about vaccines, and the early success of the early vaccines, perhaps giving rise to assumptions that the public were fully behind vaccines and demanded vaccines, suggesting that the complacency or a kind of lack of engagement, or certainly not enough engagement and transparency, leading to a more questioning and more kind of cynical public. Moving on to discussions and descriptions of how rumours have actually always been there. Gave the example of 3G, 4G and 5G. Is it 5G? Are we up to 5G yet? And how rumours have been kind of associated with these internet provision over the years. Moving on to HPV and how there's a very interesting discussion about kind of the infectivity of how people reacted to the experiences of vaccines, as opposed to a kind of biomedical causal link of vaccines to kind of experiences, and how that kind of how these experiences were in a way infective or kind of shifted from country to country. Heidi then talked about, sorry, I'm referring to my notes here, how uncertainty could be a fourth contributory foundation to mistrust in vaccines. Then we moved on to the Padlet, which I won't talk about now because Sian has summarised that. We had case studies from different parts of the globe. What came out from those discussions? Going back to my notes, was firstly wealth disparities between researchers and communities fueling mistrust, injustices, and that trust is as I mentioned earlier in the conversation earlier, shift is trust is always shifting in the population. People trust things one moment, and then further on down the line, perhaps that trust decays. And the need for early engagement was pointed out throughout the afternoon, I think, and the need for being transparent. Naho discussed that there's a very interesting thing that was mentioned about their group are promoting transparency and public involvement in research and feedback, that there was a drop in involvement for the COVID studies. And that question was raised, does engagement and transparency, do they actually lead to trust? How kind of connected are these two or three concepts here? And I think that's a good way to end the discussion, that questioning of what is the relationship between engagement and trust.